Today, we're going to be diving into the rookie draft of a high-stakes Dynasty League. I'm sure you've seen a million mocks by now, but this is the real thing. If you haven't seen any of the Dynasty Trading League episodes yet, go back and watch the first one. We're going to be hearing from other people in the league as well. But let's dive right into the board and start breaking this down. Before we break down individual picks, my team is FTRCO, but I'll let you guys digest the board to kind of get an understanding of what this rookie draft has been like as a whole. Some basic settings: it's a super flex, PPR, 12 team, 0.25 tight end premium. So regular players get 1 point per reception, tight ends get 1.25. So that's really the only main difference. It's a pretty standard league. I'm sure this is very similar to all of your Dynasty leagues. But now let's kind of dive into let's break down my picks in general, and then we can kind of dive into what I think were the best values and worst values of this draft. So I'm sitting here. You can see my team. Let's go back real quick and break down my team as well. So this is what my team looked like coming into the rookie draft. We built around quarterbacks. We got Josh Allen at the 103. We have Jordan Love as our QB2. And we pretty much punted running back completely. We have J.K. Dobbins. Sean Tucker is just a placeholder. That's about it. We drafted Drake London, Rome Odunze before the NFL draft actually, but still I feel good about him as a long-term wide receiver too. We got Njoku. We have Downs, who I like as a long-term flex option. Juwan Jennings, who I like to spike in value this year. And we need a wide receiver 3, Cedric Tillman. I like as a dart throw, but obviously he's not the clear-cut guy. So my plan here was really just to keep attacking wide receivers. I feel good about Downs and Jennings as depth pieces. And I also feel a lot better about Odunze as a 3 on a contending team than a 2. So we're not looking to win this year. The plan was to do a 1-year punt. We're more of a retooling team and kind of just get a ton of value. Maybe we grab one running back for the long term because I do like some of the values in the stack class. But overall, we just want to get talent, we want to get value, and we want to get some solid wide receivers that we can build around for the long term. So here's the rookie draft and how it unfolded. At the 108 was actually my pick, but let's head over to a trade before we get too deep. I had the 108, and I traded back from the 108 to the 201 to pick up a 2027 second, Brenton Strange, and all I had to give up was my 108 and 402. I feel that this is pretty similar. These guys are all in the same tier, and for me, I think Judkins is the pick here, but I don't really want to build around a running back. I would much rather I was fine with Matthew Golden or Egbuka or Luther Burden, who slipped all the way to the 2.5, but I was fine with any of those guys there, and I thought that at least one of them would have made it. So that's why I made the move that I did. And I ended up moving back and getting Emeka Egbuka as my first pick of the draft at the 201. I would have been fine taking him a little bit earlier than this, so that's good with me. Again, I said I wanted to address receiver. That's perfect, especially because he fits so well on my team. I don't need production this year. He's probably not going to give you that with, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin right there. But after year 1, year 2, and beyond, he's going to be elite because I love him as a prospect, and I think he's going to have a big role, especially if they draft him that high. Now we'll go ahead. At the 208, the other pick I had in the second round, well, one of them was Cam Skattebo. Big fan of him there. And I have Skattebo ranked higher than this, but I was getting a little dicey because I wanted Jack Bash. He goes one pick before me. And I have Kyle Williams. He's my 14th ranked player. I'm huge on him. I would have taken him all the way probably up in the early second round. But I bet on Latte to not take Kyle Williams because what he had already done was I knew he had already taken Tet and Hunter. So I felt like he was going to get a quarterback because he's pretty weak there. So I took a risk. I know him, and I know that he doesn't love Kyle Williams as much as I do. So I ended up passing on Kyle Williams because I thought Skattebo would be gone. And I was hoping I could get both of them. The risk ended up paying off. And I got a huge value on Kyle Williams in my opinion. So love how that second round came away. Third round is where my last trade comes into play. And we'll go over here. I traded Brenton Strange, my 2026 third and 2026 fourth, to move up to the 301 and select Harold Fannin. Now, you may think this is an overpay, and Mason, I think, may have got a pretty good deal. But Harold Fannin is my guy. I came into the draft with the draft day post-it note, Harold Fannin Jr. no matter what. And I also have David Njoku, so this allows me to corner the Browns tight end room perfectly. Njoku, I can either sell him depending on what he does after this year, or if he gets traded because he's, due for a contract in the near future. And Harold Fannin, I had him as my tight end 1 in summer scouting. He was a late first round pick in my first ever rookie mock draft. Obviously, I have to respect the draft capital. I have to respect landing spots. And also, he didn't really test perfectly and moved down slightly in my rankings while Colson Loveland moved up either way. But he's a guy that I couldn't leave this rookie draft without. So I had to go up and trade up for him because I don't really have much value for Brenton Strange. I don't think he's the answer there for the Jaguars. But Fannin is my guy, so I made the move. I got my guy. Now, to round things off, I think one of the best values from my perspective was getting Luther Burden at the 205. I thought he should have easily went at the 202 at the latest. And this is high-end players. I don't think Higgins, Taylor should have gone ahead of him. So getting him here, I don't think I've ever seen him go that late for a really high-caliber player. Even though I'm not as high on him in year 1 and I don't love the landing spot as a Bears fan, I have to respect the talent, and I think he's going to be a long-term play for them. So I don't think he's a first-round pick anymore like he was coming into the NFL draft, but I can't let him slip any later than the 202. Later than that, I think it's a great value because of the upside you're getting with him. But more of a sleeper pick for me is Terrence Ferguson. I like that at the 306. Tyler Show. This was done before the Derek Carr news, so that kind of does play into it. Trey Harris is a pretty good value as well. But I think the best value in this entire draft was Pat Bryant at the 411. I was a bit surprised he fell that far because he's nowhere near that in my rankings. He's somewhere in the 30s. I'm a huge Pat Bryant guy. I went to Illinois, so maybe I'm a little biased. But, I mean, the Broncos have no one else there besides Cortland Sutton. He profiles to be an ex-receiver. He's gotten high praise from Sean Payton already. And he was a third-round pick. So, Pat Bryant in the third, I love that value. Or the fourth. He was basically almost an undrafted free agent. That is phenomenal value for Latte there. Great pick by him. My biggest reach was probably Mason Taylor at the 204. I could never justify taking him over Burden. And I told you that. We're going to hear his reaction or his thoughts on taking Taylor here in this video. But I know he has need at tight end. I can never justify taking Mason Taylor over Luther Burden when Taylor, for one, I don't have him ahead of Fannin. I don't even have him above Terrence Ferguson. So tight end value alone, I think that's a reach because I think he's going to be much more of a blocker. The Jets, Justin Fields, the situation is not great. He could be, sure, he has opportunities to get targets in year 1, maybe because Garrett Wilson is about all that's there. But again, Taylor's not an elite receiver. He's not really elite at anything. So at the 204 is very rich ahead of guys like Burden, especially Tootin, Bess, Scadaboo, Arroyo I would have taken ahead of him, Kyle Williams. There's just so many guys that basically in the entire second round that I would have taken ahead of Taylor. But, I have to respect it. And before we jump into the comments and make a comment about this Taylor pick, let Drew explain himself later in this video.
First of all, I only had 2 picks, so this won't take a ton of time. At the 107, I took Tyler Warren. I'm a Colts fan. Pretty obvious pick there. I love that he went to Indianapolis. He was my tight end 1 for this rookie class. I think he has the makings of an offensive centerpiece to him. He's a great blocker. He's a good separator. He's got great contested catch skills, really fantastic hands. He's a vertical threat and a threat in the short passing game. He's a ridiculous athlete, and I think he's going to fit really well into this Colts offense. And if Anthony Richardson can develop a quarterback, he could be one of the best tight ends in the league from day one. A couple other players I was considering were Caleb Johnson and Quinshon Judkins, 2 running backs I had pretty highly ranked, but I decided to go best player available at that point. And since running back was my weakest position, I decided in the third round to shore it up with Dylan Sampson, running back for the Cleveland Browns. I think he's going to be a great complement to Quinshon Judkins, and the fact that they selected him so early on day 3 makes me think that he's going to be involved from the start of the season. Quinshon Judkins is a good power back for Cleveland, but I think Sampson can work as a pretty solid complement, and they could form a thunder and lightning duo, and I really needed a running back, and he was basically just the best player available that I see getting touches early on in his career. As far as the biggest steals, it's either going to be Trey Harris or Terrence Ferguson. Harris, obviously, the Chargers wide receiver, and Ferguson, new tight end for the Los Angeles Rams. Both are fantastic fits with their new teams. I was especially high on Terrence Ferguson coming into the draft, and they should have been selected by the second round. If I had to pick in the second, I probably would have taken one of them. And the biggest reach to me was either Jalen Milroe or Elijah Arroyo. Both are new teammates in Seattle, Milroe at quarterback and Arroyo at tight end. I really don't see Milroe starting within the next couple of years if Sam Darnold does perform as well as he did last year. I'm not a huge fan of picking a quarterback entering camp as the backup with a second-round pick. And then Arroyo, I think there are better tight ends, including Terrence Ferguson down the board ahead of him. The medical reports do concern me a little bit, and there's a bit of competition at the position in A.J. Barner and Noah Fant. I think Arroyo can be a good player as well as Milroe, but I would have selected them in the third round.
From NFL Trading Room, and here we're officially at the rookie draft recap. So I had the 105, just dive right into it. I had the 105. I came into it, recording the intro we did in our first video. I said I was really interested in Colson Loveland. I didn't address tight end in our startup draft because I was kind of banking on getting Colson Loveland. He's a guy I've been very high on. I think he's going to be very productive in Chicago. But I also mentioned if Cam Ward slid that I was going to have to, make some hard decisions there. And I didn't think that was a realistic possibility. Honestly, I didn't think there was really any chance he would. But, what do you know? I get to the 105. Cam Ward is still on the clock. And I really, in a super flex league like this, we already drafted Drake May with our first pick. But I had Sam Darnold as our second guy. Not really a long-term option. I thought he'd be fine for this year, but I wanted to get younger at that position at some point. And Cam Ward, who I think is the only quarterback worth really drafting in this draft class, fell to me at 105. I really couldn't say no. So I went ahead and pulled that trigger. We now have our QB duo of the future. Lock it down. Nice to have that the most important position in Superflex. Got that bookend duo for however long. And that does continue to leave the massive tight end hole. And because of Loveland is still on the board, he continued to slide. I'm a big Loveland fan. I called every single team from the 106 down to the 201, I believe, until my last pick was, or my second pick was. And nobody would deal, unfortunately. I couldn't get back up. Colson Loveland did go at the top of the second round, which I think is awesome value for whoever got him. But unfortunately, I couldn't trade back up. We're there in the 203, I believe my second round pick was. There's the better talent on the board. I had to reach on a tight end. I hate reaching. I always preach best player available. But we just didn't have a tight end on the roster. Mason Taylor seemed like the guy second to me who's going to be the only tight end on that Jets roster. He's going to be the true inline Y guy. Doesn't really have much competition. I'm going to get a lot of target share in that offense. I didn't love him as a player coming out of the draft, but I think he's going to get a lot of targets there in New York. So I felt like it was just a good floor production-wise for him and his role in that offense as a rookie. So yes, it was a reach, but I felt like I needed to reach for a tight end there, unfortunately. And going into the third round, I was really hoping to target Kyle Williams right here. He's been, anybody that followed my draft coverage knows that he was my favorite guy in this whole draft class. I thought I was going to be able to get him as a sleeper. I guess Steve watched the videos too much, our guy. And fearless leader here, Steve, stole him at the end of the second round, which was not fun at all. So I did miss out on him, but we landed Jalen Noel. Went to Houston. And I think, I do worry with how crowded that receiver room is. Obviously drafting Jaden Higgins in the second round and already having Nico Collins. But from what it seems like with Houston's draft strategy, they're not very confident in Tank Dell really being anything in the future because of the injury history. And I think Jalen Noel can immediately step into that wide receiver 3 slot role in Houston. And I think he's going to get a lot of targets there. I think he's a great player. I love the talent. He was 35th on my big board. So I'm a big Jalen Noel fan. I like that value there in the third round. I'm cool with that. We had some depth at the receiver position. Hopefully a guy that can develop into a starting role eventually for us. Here we had 3 picks in the fourth round. That was really, we got a lot of depth there to just take some flyers on some guys. And I told myself I wanted to take 2 running back flyers in the fourth round. My biggest target was Brashard Smith out of Kansas City, who we did get with our first fourth round pick. I think, as a converted slot receiver, a 1-year running back at SMU, I thought his tape was outstanding. He's one of my favorite day 3 running backs in the draft. And I think with Kansas City's offense and the way their running back room looks, there's really no competition as far as third down receiving backs goes. I think Brashard Smith has the potential to take over as the guy there in his rookie year, honestly, and be the immediate 1B to Pacheco. So I think he has a potential to be a potential starting running back, in fantasy, or a potential flex guy in his first year even. So I love the value there. I went ahead and got Damian Martinez with my second pick, the running back out of Miami who went to Seattle. And I understand that's a very crowded running back room. Like that's going to worry you. Being behind, K9 and Zach Charbonnet. There's been a lot of trade talks around both of those running backs, though. Seattle has been very open about potentially dealing one or even both of those running backs. But I think with how far Martinez has fallen, I know the landing spot's not great, but I just loved him so much as a player and loved his draft evaluation so much that I felt like I can take a bet on him as a runner, and he's going to find a way to carve out a role eventually for himself. So I'm fine with just taking a flyer on the talent there in the fourth round to see if he's ever able to actually get significant playing time there in Seattle. With our last fourth round pick, I wanted to go back at receiver, and we went with Isaac Tesla, the receiver out of Arkansas that went to Detroit. Detroit gave up a lot of draft capital to go up and get this guy. They traded 3 third-round picks to go up and get Isaac Tisla. So they clearly have an idea for him. He's going to be a significant contributor even in his rookie year. You don't give up that kind of draft capital for a player that you're just going to stash somewhere and develop. He's going to be an early contributor. I loved him as a player. I think he's one of the better athletes in this draft class. I think he's a very, very big body. He played a lot of big slot in college, but obviously you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't know how that slot is going to work. I assume maybe they're planning to play him on the outside. We'll see. But either way, I think he's going to be an immediate contributor into that Detroit receiving room. And I'm totally fine taking a flyer on a guy with that athleticism level and a team that clearly was that dedicated to getting him and just some extra depth at the receiving position. Overall, I'm really happy with how I left. The Loveland thing was disappointing, but we landed, Cam Ward, who I didn't think was really in the realm of possibility. So land our tight end and Mason Taylor, who I hope the NFL is more right about him than I was in my draft evaluation. And then we got some really good flyers in Jalen Noel and Brashard Smith and some guys I'm really excited about as developmental pieces. So overall, I'm feeling great with how we're starting, and I'm pretty happy with how the rookie draft ended. So yeah, without further ado, I guess we'll get into the season.